use AI as a leverage for that domain expertise you have in order to like maximize your throughput and become not just an expert, but as people call it, a 10x engineer. In terms of like our actual product, it's relatively intuitive. I think that the part that is not intuitive is not the product itself, it's the overall AI strategy around it. As someone that's looking to understand, do people even want what I want when building on like what's the ideal way this should look like and like what's the message I resonate the most, you want to reduce that noise as much as possible. We are not as dependent anymore on the quality of the data. Language models, as I mentioned, they're very good at structuring unstructured data.
So we are live with one of the co-founders of Stack AI, who, and correct me with the numbers if anything of this is off, but I recently saw that you guys hit a $80 million evaluation for Stack AI, and I'm very, very excited to have you on, talk everything automation, talk everything LinkedIn as well, because I have been following you for a period of time. And overall, just very happy to have you on, Bernardo, and excited to get to it.
Thank you very much, Joran. Thank you for inviting. Happy to be here.
So 80 million valuation is no small number. And I wanted to just like jump into it. Well, jump into before even. You're from MIT, you have an MIT background, very impressive. And I want to just understand your journey of how you went from MIT, how you even came from Venezuela. We were talking a little bit of Spanish behind the scenes, all the way to creating Stack AI. Give us a little bit of context about what your journey was like.
Yeah, for sure. So thank you very much for the invite, Jordan. And indeed, like I come from a background of AI research in general, and after 11 years of exploring kind of like model architectures, reinforcement learning, mixed entity optimization, we've embarked on this journey, and it's been very fun to kind of like enable this the deployment of AI agents across all sorts of industries where security is such a big challenge. Be a pioneer in the development of all this journey. So yeah, no, I appreciate the invite, and yeah, looking forward to sharing more.
So how come, what happened with the automation? How come you guys decided to jump into no code workflows? Was there anything that like triggered that initially, or did it kind of like just build up over time going into
Yeah,
this?
no, so and that's a great question. I think originally it did build over time,
Mhm.
but it all started from a common vision. I think in 2021, 2022, there was this common consensus that if you wanted to bring AI to a professional setting or an organizational setting, you had to bring a set of data scientists, bring a experimental process where you will collect data, label it, design a model, and then apply it to a specific problem. That made it such that applying AI to like actual back office operations and existing, problems that you'll find in a day-to-day organization became really prohibitive for most. Not only because of cost, but also because of the talent it would require and the scarcity of this talent and the tooling around it. And this always seemed like a big problem for me and my co-founder. It was quite obvious that, all this advance in deep learning and machine learning will end up enabling a new transformation of most manual processes and work that just couldn't be done before. It didn't exist before. And it looked to us like there was had to be some sort of mechanism to break away from the Jupyter notebooks that we had back then and put it on the hands of the end user.
Mhm.
And that's how we started Stack AI. Our first approach was not quite a no-code tool. It was actually a tool for developers, but that will make building a dataset from a model much faster. But it quickly evolved into something that will enable people to, more than work as a no-code, but enable people that understand business processes very well, map these processes into the tooling of generative AI and AI agents, language models, vector databases, document processors with scrapers, APIs, etc., without the need for you to go and actually build from scratch an automation yourself or a user interface yourself, which is extremely prohibitive for most organizations and teams, regardless of their size and budget. It can be a big challenge, and overall, just holds the advance of innovation.
And even down the line, or even way, way beforehand, because AI kind of just did its huge boom more or less recently within the release of OpenAI's ChatGPT. Did you already see kind of the beginning of AI coming in long ago? Did you already kind of see that this was going to be a big thing and that it was going to take off way down in the future, specifically in terms of AI?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think I don't think I was the only one. I think anybody that had been using computers with some sort of data science and machine learning for a while knew that the traditional data science and machine learning were quite counted. And the reason of why was because of the advent of foundation models, meaning models that are pre-trained with large general amounts of data that can then be steered to specific tasks. The first foundation models that we saw broadly used were the ones for image processing. I think after ImageNet, you had a big, broad range of foundation models arising for object detection, classification, etc. And those were applied to a variety of problems. Thanks to that, we have self-driving cars. Thanks to that, we have a wide array of perception systems now available, now existing in the day to day. The appearance of foundation language models took much longer than the image model. It was not until a transformer was invented in 2017 that we had a mechanism to train language models at scale. And with that came GPT, BERT, all the other famous transformers. I remember specifically when GPT-2 came out, when I was the most impressed of like, wow, they actually managed to build something that is foundational with language. And GPT-2 was like an open source model, like released by OpenAI. It could generate emails. It could like forecast text. It wasn't amazing. Like even if you use it today, you will think it's laughable. How could this be considered AI? It's just like a parrot that spits out text. But the reality is that before that, there was really nothing that could like honestly cover a wider range of topics and knowledge within a foundation setting. And this could be easily steered from multiple applications. I think that was the spark that made us realize that this was going to be the future. Foundation models with language that will become bigger and bigger and bigger and smarter and smarter. And I mean, that prediction, I mean, at the time, I don't think it was honestly that unintuitive, but proved correct. And then GPT-3 came out, and then ChatGPT came out. And at that moment, we were already positioned with the tooling to make this feasible and actually democratizable across the enterprise.
And in terms of even the go to market fit, because one of the big things that I wanted to talk to you about was like what you're doing on LinkedIn and even how you started to initially get the ball rolling with exactly who your first clients were. Was it that you were going into like very niche communities and finding exactly who would benefit the most from your product? Or was it kind of just like, let's run some ads and let's see who uses the products? Or what was your go to market strategy initially?
Yeah, no, great question actually, because I would say that neither of those are necessarily the approach that we managed to get our first few clients. I would say our first few clients came by just looking at kind of like AI enthusiasts that were like already like looking to automate stuff. When we started developing this platform in early 2023, I mean, like just releasing it, we were part of some communities of other founders, of like, executives in AI, enterprises in AI. We were releasing a little bit of updates on what we were doing. I managed to capture some interest. I remember our first few clients either came through us because they saw us announcing Hacker News or in Launch YC, where we announced our platform, or because we actually reached out to them directly, like, hey, I saw that you talked about struggling to like classify websites and whatnot. And hey, we have a platform that makes this very easy. Our actually very first client came out just through a WhatsApp outbound.
Oh,
They're
wow.
looking at a WhatsApp group, someone complaining about not being able to build his own classification pipeline for websites, and I told him, hey, we can help you do this with semantic search and language models.
And is it pretty intuitive for people to use it, or was there some kind of onboarding process?
Well, I think like it depends on what you're trying to achieve. In terms of like our actual product, it's relatively intuitive. I think that the part that is not intuitive is not the product itself, it's the overall AI strategy around it. And I think that's the overall problem. That's the greater problem we're trying to solve. The reason why most AI pilots either fail across the enterprise or most tools struggle to get adoption is not because the technology doesn't work and they don't understand how to use it. It's because people don't know what are the right problems to tackle with it. And that's actually probably a bigger challenge in tech in general. But I would say that with AI, it's much more tangible because it's so easy to spin out AI tools and to like apply it to different domains that it's very easy to get stuck in the wrong problem.
Yeah.
Now, what I think like we always like to think about the problems like in our engagement with customers problem first. Like, what are you trying to solve? Are you trying to like automate account receivable? Are you trying to automate payments? Are you trying to automate collections? Are you trying to automate some back office process that is very manual? And walk backwards from there to like how do we get you to be successful and what will be the path beyond that process to like transform your organization in and out with language models.
One of the steepest learning curves too is that we started to use Clay a little bit, and there's so much potential with how to use Clay as well, and even
Yeah.
same with Stack AI, because I haven't gone like as deep as like obviously like an enterprise level company with it, but I did use Stack AI for limitations that it had for a period of time, and just it like surprised me how much you can go into it as well. And I don't think that that's really what people understand super well. So when you have your team or when like you get an enterprise level purchase, is there somebody who kind of just like breaks everything down for you, or is this something that's you try and do like kind of teaching online? Because I've also saw that you have like YouTube channel as well with that.
Yeah, so a bit of both indeed. When we have a large collection of resources, templates, tutorials, and guides that can help you get very started and up and running with our platform, that's a great starting point for most companies. For most of our clients, not only do they just use our platform, but we usually assign them a forward deploy engineer and an AI strategist that within their secure domain will help them, strategize. What are the key use cases you want to approach first? How are you going to prioritize them? And then once you have a priority and a schedule, start designing and implementing them. The actual implementation is not that time consuming. It can take 20 minutes to build an agent. The hard part is then tuning it so it can perform as required by the actual problem. This can fall within prompt engineering, can fall within context engineering, within tool selection and tool configuration. And really that's the bulk of the development when it comes to Stack AI, more than actually assigning the workflow. Because people in their jobs, they know pretty well like what a process looks like. Oh, I get this paper, put it on a fax, why not, etc. Again, and end up sending this email, writing this report. So it's mostly about mapping that into a language model quickly and into the tooling around it, and then tune those components. And that's what our forward deploy engineers help our clients do and enable. With their goal being, making them self-sufficient to a point where even a person that has never done context engineering before in any way can very easily pick it up for future problems, then distribute it more widely within the organization.
And I'm curious too, like what's the most surprising use case that you've used Stack AI? Is there anyone that you want to share in particular?
Yeah, wow, there are many surprising use cases and over time. I would say that one that I did not expect would have also so much success was one of our actually first clients. They were a large government contractor in the development of public infrastructure in the U.S. I cannot mention the like by
Yeah.
the security, but essentially like a large developer for government projects, and they have about 20,000 employees. They're based in the U.S. They're always doing stadiums, airports, all sorts of things, military bases, and they had a big challenge. They wanted to build some AI tools to help the way in which they approach their business development and advanced marketing. One of the key processes that consumes a lot of time for them, ironically, was finding the best product prospects in order to apply for a project or to bid for a project within the organization. So, what would that mean? Normally whenever they would apply to like be the civil engineering firm or construction firm for a new stadium for the Olympics or for a new airport, they have to fill out this application for something called an RFP. And every time they did that, they will have to go actually like search inside the company who are the best talent, the best position people in the company to lead this project based on certifications, based on their location, based on their age. And when you have 20,000 employees across the company, plus contractors and like third party vendors, it's very hard to do this. They actually consume them a lot of hours. So they said, why can't we have an AI that we ask it, give me the top three people to run this project and they need to have this certification? And they built it with us. Actually, they actually managed to get a pretty successful prototype within like 2 weeks, and they deployed broadly in the organization within like 2 months. And today, I think that they gave us an estimate. They save per year something like $300,000 just with this agent. By how much time they would used to spend just like calling and asking and like looking through their SharePoint and their CRM to find who could be assigned to a project. And that was a big win. And what surprised me about that was kind of like the span at which applied retrieval augmented generation has gone, because I think that there's this fundamental there's this like assumption that like retrieval systems are designed for question answering, for like just finding facts or retrieving things, but they can be applied to quite specific business problems like staff allocation, proposal drafting, research, whatnot. And really like it's just a tool within that engine to apply to the right problem in knowledge management.
It's just a matter of also finding the right fit for AI, because a lot of times I've seen that I think a lot of people just want to shoehorn AI into something, and like as long as that it has AI at the ending, then it's like a multi-million dollar product. Or maybe I should say, have you seen like the mistakes that companies are making or that technologies are making with just trying to implement AI? What would you say are the biggest ones?
Yeah, no, great question. I mean, there's many mistakes. I mean, the first one is not doing anything. That's the biggest mistake. Like not doing anything, just trying Copilot, whatnot. It's fine. It will keep you in the order of operations. Nothing will change in your company, but you will also be left behind. The second biggest mistake is to like not try to understand what language models are good at. And I think like that's actually something very easy to learn if you just ask someone who has done it or if you play with ChatGPT. Language models are very good at taking information and structuring it. Let's say taking a big document, a messy pile of text, and then like giving you like a structured set of information, like in bullet points or in a JSON or in like a table, but like structuring stuff is very unstructured. Language models are very good at summarizing information. Let's say taking a long report and then summarizing it in a few paragraphs. Language models are very good at that. And language models are very good at taking like a few bullet points and breaking it down into like broader, like detailed information, like for reports, proposals, whatnot. Outside from that, yeah, they can call tools. The language models can like take and generate, make the decision to like process something or like simulate a computer, but they're not great at many other tools. They're not great at interpreting numerical data. They're not great at like solving math problems. They're not great at doing tasks that don't fall within the category of data structuring, synthesis of content, or summarization. And I think that's critical because when you understand that those three categories are the ones where language models excel, and you think about like where in my job do I have tasks and processes where these three steps are needed, which by the way is most tasks that we do in our day-to-day job, then it's basically to fit where it makes sense to bring in AI. I think that's the third mistake is to like, okay, understanding this, not and trying to do something, but like falling for the fallacy that like, you'll be able to do it yourself with engineers, with support, whatever, like and trying to build a team around it. When in reality, that will just slow you down. Tooling like us exists in order to bridge the gap between companies that have realized the potential of Gen AI for their organization or for AI in their organization and haven't really had it deployed from facing fashion to their teams. I think like that gap is where once you bridge it, you turn into the top 1% of organizations in the world, at least in AI adoption and their impact.
And I think that that's one of the big things too that a lot of organizations would be, or maybe not organizations, maybe I should say, maybe like engineers who are just like coming right directly out of college, right? They're worried that, well, I have this no code AI workflow that is going to be taking up my job, right? Like, what do you think is the future for engineers who are just even coming out of the workforce, and how can they adopt AI so that it just doesn't uh, will consume their job in like the next 10, 20 years? What do you see the future of
Yeah.
that being?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, I think that like when I look at like the workforce today, it's true that like things will change drastically. Like when I look at back in my days when I just came out of school and I started developing my own projects, everything was very much assigned. So you have to like figure out yourself with the internet research and whatnot, and be very resourceful in order to get anything done. At least in development, you wanted to like do a neural network, you had to like be resourceful to like look for the right course, figure out, like online in forums what was the right way to do something, look at papers, and it was quite consuming to like access knowledge, even with the fact that the internet made it, honestly, like feasible for everybody. And I think that with AI, I don't think that programming jobs will disappear. I think that it's very important to understand how code bases work. I think it's very important to understand how infrastructure works. I think it's very important to understand how logic functions within a digital system. Nevertheless, I think that the best positioned professionals for the next generation are those who have a very strong foundation on logic in the cloud and infrastructure and are very good at using AI tools to like to massively accelerate their deployment of tools of software and code. And I see it when I interview candidates for Stack AI. We always look for candidates that are very well understanding of how the principles of back end, front end, infrastructure DevOps, and who can use AI as a leverage to go from 1 to 10 really fast and easily try a hypothesis, easily try experiments. But I don't think it's a replacement for the foundation core knowledge, kind of like be needed in order to properly assign a system and deploy it.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, there's a lot of stuff that goes on. It's not just like about programming and like creating an array and creating an object, right? It's about actually being able to have like those fundamental, that logic behind all of that programming that's going to be useful in the future. I think that's like the foundation of it a lot. I'm switching gears just like a little bit here too, because again, I used your software for a period of time. And at the same time, I also follow you on LinkedIn too. So I see that you're also posting quite a bit on LinkedIn, and it's so is same as your co-founder Tony as well.
Yeah.
I also see him posting too. And let me start it like pretty broad, but like, what was the reason behind posting on LinkedIn. Do you post on any other platform for yourself personally?
Yeah, no, I think that's I mean, we try to post sometimes on Twitter, whatnot. I think that LinkedIn is good in the sense that it's a professional network where people do go in order to like understand more like organizational wide how their careers will like be progress and whatnot. I think that we are in a moment in which it's quite critical to like inform the masses on what actually is feasible with AI and what are the pitfalls and what are the misconceptions around. And I think that the content we write is mostly used in order to clear those misconceptions, to explain what success with AI look like and what failures look like, and like why most people fail. Like why does that not, doesn't need to be the case. I think like it's a place where the people that we work with, meaning usually business leaders, being IT staffing, end up being the ones that would find you there. And I think it's the best place to reach them overall.
How long have you been posting now for on LinkedIn for?
Ah, wow, good question. Maybe since I was a PhD student occasionally. I also used to post on Twitter more back then, but like
Yeah.
I need to get catch up on that. I wouldn't say that I have that much time to post on social media these days, unfortunately.
Yeah, I can imagine. Has there also been a good amount of inbound coming in or a good amount of like people even just starting conversations, obviously other than myself, with just your posts on LinkedIn?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people want to learn more, and like either join our team. It's for us a big tool for recruiting and getting the best talent, but also get to know, like a little bit more about, like, hey, how do you? I saw that this work for this hedge fund. Tell me more about that. I've been in the same situation, just like sharing the insights.
And what was going on with Twitter as well when you were posting? Because so many of the CEOs that I've spoken with, they also mentioned like that they were posting for a good amount of time on Twitter, and then they kind of made the transition to LinkedIn. What was the reason behind the Twitter posting?
If they're posting, no, like it's, yeah, the AI research community is broadly there, like so when you start talking mostly about research, it will be the place I will go.
Mhm. Okay. Even if you were starting it also from scratch too, let's say that you were kind of back in the day when Stack AI was
Hmm.
just coming up. What, where would you start off trying to get your initial clients? And I mean, would it start off again being a WhatsApp message, or is there a certain platform that you would use, or is there a certain style that
Yeah.
you would use?
I think that the most important thing when starting off is to understand very well who's your audience and to have a very strong hypothesis of who they are. Because to get something off the ground when a product is very early, when a team is very early, you need to find people that would really care about it and who really will be willing to like put a time and investment into like actually exploring a new technology. So if you don't understand in a lot of detail who that audience is for, like in our case was like IT staffing, CIOs, enterprise architecture, like, and you don't understand where they live and where they go, it's not very hard to get it off the ground. Personally, I like having being very personalized with my audiences and like looking into, okay, if my audience is soda drinkers in the US, teenagers, I try to figure out where they hang out. I try to be present there, either with content or either with like their like joining their communities and they're really reaching out to people and starting conversations that way. I think the good thing about like direct reach out is that you control your own destiny and you can know who is gonna see it. You can actually like take a good shot. And the most important thing where you're beginning a startup or where you're doing any like high leverage, high reward project is one where is taking the opportunity to act, using each opportunity you have to give yourself the best shot to disprove a hypothesis. And whether it is with go to market or with with product or with overall just a strategy and direction, you need to give yourself the time to like understand actually like what would a good quality shot look like here in terms of like picking the best audience for this, picking the best place, picking the best message to use, picking the right presentation to use, and give it a shot. I think a lot of founders take very mediocre shots to problems, and then they end up in this thing called pivot hell because of that lack of focus on understanding what would success me look like if I were to find it here, and how would you get there, and like having a craft for getting that good shot there.
That was really
And
interesting too. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off with
no
that,
worries, no worries.
but it was just like of pivot health as well. Because I think this is the period, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it's kind of the period where you're trying to find that go to market fit. And you're just, you might be finding something, you might be finding that you're like onto something, but then you think that maybe you could be wrong. So you're like, hey, let's pivot a little bit here, let's pivot a little bit there. How long would you typically stay onto something and like keep hacking at something and be like, there's something here, it's just a matter of staying in longer? versus maybe we might need to pivot? How do you find that balance?
So I think I like it's okay to start a bit broad and then narrow down, but the better that you have a strong hypothesis and a strong opinion for who's your client, the easier it will be to take decisions. Because the problem is that the broader you are, the more contradiction you'll find in the market. And that's something inevitable. There's going to be contradicting opinions and perspectives everywhere. And if you start with a broad audience, the amount of contradictions and noise you'll see will be so much that it's going to be very hard to make decisions, and that will slow you down. Whereas when you start very focused and targeted, the noise you will find will be much more significantly decreased. And as someone that's looking to understand, do people even want what I want when building on like what's the ideal way this should look like, and like what's the message I resonate the most, you want to reduce that noise as much as possible
Yeah.
in order to get a good shot and go and get that golden product market fit as they call it. So I think that like it's better to like be mindful that you have a lot of noise, but having a strong opinion will get you there, and being customer first will also get you there.
Hmm. I can imagine. The two more questions that I have, and the biggest I would say is what was the biggest bottleneck stopping enterprises from adopting AI workflow?
Yeah. What's the biggest bottleneck? I think that like, what AI exposed for a lot of enterprises was not how AI ready they are necessarily, but also how cloud ready they are overall. I think when you use a lot of legacy systems that have no APIs, that have no good mechanism for connecting externally, you are nevertheless going to be doomed from connecting third-party systems to properly interact with them. I would say that that ends up being a big challenge, as well as like controlling governance around it, like who can access these systems and who can bring the systems into an actual, automation with the right permissioning and the right security around it. And a lot of companies get stuck just because no one wants to own that governance. No one knows who actually like where is the central place to reach out for that, and like being with systems that are very cloud unfriendly.
Yeah, I mean it's a massive chunk, right? It's like a massive
Yeah,
responsibility.
for sure, it's a big chunk of the problem of the organization. And at the end, if you tackle the governance problem though, and understand the ownership of a data access and whatnot, you do get a big part of the problem resolved. Because one of the good things about generative AI that we didn't have with AI before was that we are not as dependent anymore on the quality of the data. Language models, as I mentioned, they're very good at structuring unstructured data. So if you want to build systems that retrieve information from local drives, that do data entry in systems, that summarize information in systems, you do not have to spend as much time reorganizing your data and building the perfect data warehouse and organizing the structure of it, which used to be a large component of digital transformation projects.
Mm.
Now you can spend the time on just thinking as a human would. What are the steps to take this process into to execute this process and fill the gaps with language models in the middle? And
You,
yeah.
what you meant in terms of like the quality of data that was coming out, it was
Yeah,
coming
no.
back.
I would say like in terms of quality of data, like regardless of what process you're doing, most data in the enterprise, 90% plus, is unstructured. It's in the form of PDF files, Excel files,
Yeah.
Word files, text files, videos, presentations, etc. I think that trying to structure all that information out in a way that is easily queryable and organized sounds very nice and everything, but if we can become independent of the structure, I think that we can unlock much more progress for humanity than by like trying to structure everything. In the end, organizations run and function with all this unstructured data because we humans operate with unstructured data. Now we have a technology that can operate with unstructured data regardless of the quality and can navigate through that noise. So I think that actually is a major unlock for the way in which we like search through information, the way that we present information, the way that we organize it, since now we get released from that requirement of having everything clean and structured and perfect because we're not training anything. We're not like needing a system to query with structure. We just need to have the data feasible and accessible. And I think that the access component is a big bottleneck. But the good thing is that by removing it, and just by the sheer nature of the underlying AI technology, you actually end up enabling a lot, regardless of whether third-party systems are accessible or not.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be discouraged by the fact that you have a non-cloud native environment if you have the ability to like unlock access to the actual systems that are compatible with language models.
Yeah. Now I think one of the big issues too. Well, I guess it's always been a big issue or a big question is also the obviously like the truthfulness of the data that's coming out. And I add this as well because even Reddit, right? They've taken big approaches to like even Gemini is searching up on Google, like how do I add a new cell into my Excel file? I don't know, something like
Yeah,
that. That now they're kind of like upvoting it with Reddit, so that it's not just like the biggest article that's like paying the biggest companies paying for like this blog article to like rank higher to be
yeah,
the ones that are executing the ones that are coming up at the top of the index. It's like the most truthful data.
yeah. No,
What do you kind
that's
of
true.
see the
That's
future?
true. No, and that's right. Like I think like it's important to distinguish kind of like what data quality means for a foundation model, meaning for like ChatGPT when you're interacting with it and it's searching the web. In which case, yeah, it's very important to have Reddit. But
Mm-hmm.
what it means when you're just trying to build an internal automation that you know will interact with a set of documents, that you know will interact with a set of files, that you know will interact with a database, and whose job is to like just do transactions with these systems in order to structure, enter, or retrieve data. It's true that accuracy can improve if you have better quality, but the good thing is you don't depend on that as much. I think that is actually like one of the biggest advances nobody talks about in Gen AI.
So to keep things within time and to wrap it up, this is the famous question that I always ask at the very end of every interview. And it's basically what, if you could go back to when you were starting the company, or even if you were 21 or finishing up at MIT, what,
Yeah, no, I mean, like when I started MIT, I think that at one point I was looking very much to follow a academic career. I think that my
yeah,
vision at the time was that the best place to have impact was to just design the latest AI models, and I think that it's important that to recognize for someone that is new today that you don't have to be as constrained anymore. You can
yeah,
actually like do impactful research. You can actually like develop cool products. You can actually like put tools in people's hands without the need to be constrained to one of these domains. I don't think it's something I realized back when I was starting my academic path at MIT, and that was when I was 23, whatever. But like, if you are coming out of school today, I will still put a big emphasis on understanding very well the foundations on what good code is, what good quality of, what the best practices are, understand very well what the tooling is, understand very well what the new tooling is, and like gain the loop quickly for building part of one community where you have backend, front end, cloud, AI, data science, etc., and own it very well. Use AI as a leverage for that domain expertise you have in order to like maximize your throughput and become not just an expert, but as people call it, a 10x engineer.
a 10x engineer.
Yeah.
Amazing. So that was what my question was going to be. It was going to say I was going to say what one piece of advice would you give your 23-year-old self coming out of MIT? Is it that?
Yeah, make sure to own something and like don't get discouraged because it takes too long to build CUDA kernels. Very soon you have an expert next to you that will help you do it at scale.
That's amazing. And don't get discouraged too. I think is a big thing. There's
Yeah,
always
for
the
sure.
up and downs when you're building a business. But perfect. Well, I mean, thanks so much, Bernard. Appreciate you coming on. And so, Bernard, I say tu no from Stack AI. And is there anywhere also that people can find you and can start using Stack AI as well?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the best place to find me is on LinkedIn or Twitter. You can find me at Bernardo. If you want to learn more about Stack AI, visit our website, stack.ai. You'll see everything there. You can book a call with us. You can see our product. You can even try the sandbox version if you want to like play around a little bit and learn more. And if you are a enterprise that is struggling to bring actual AI agents into production that like doesn't know where to start, what's the first step, we are the best place to come and get that understanding. So yeah, thank you for the invite, Jordan.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Bernard. Speak
Cheers.
soon.
Absolutely.